From the very first cold morning of November, Daniel Brooks never imagined that one small act of kindness would change the course of his entire life. He was a single father raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, in a quiet town on the outskirts of Denver, where he worked long shifts as a grocery truck loader and walked his daughter to school every day before sunrise. One morning he noticed a woman sitting alone on the bus stop bench, shivering, holding a torn blanket, wearing a faded gray coat, and clutching a small paper bag as if it were all she owned. She looked exhausted, embarrassed, and invisible to the world. Her name, he would later learn, was Claire Ellison, a woman who always kept her eyes down and whispered, "Thank you," as if speaking louder would break her. That first day, Daniel offered her his spare coffee. The next day, he brought her a sandwich. On the third morning, he left home even earlier so she wouldn't sit in the cold alone. Every morning after that, he brought her something: tea, gloves, a scarf, sometimes just a warm smile. He never asked why she was there, and she never volunteered to explain. All he knew was that Lily adored her, often giving Claire little drawings with hearts and stick figures, saying, "Daddy, she looks like she needs someone." Claire would wipe her eyes and whisper, "You're an angel, sweetheart." And slowly, very slowly, something began to soften in her, something that looked a lot like hope. But the truth, the full truth, Daniel could never have guessed. Claire wasn't just a woman who had fallen on hard times. She had once been the sole heir to the Ellison Financial Trust, one of the largest private philanthropic foundations on the East Coast. 2 years earlier, she had left the organization after a brutal board dispute following her father's death. Her own relatives, cousins, and board executives had forced her out, claiming she was unfit to manage the trust. Outnumbered, emotionally broken, and dealing with grief, she walked away from everything and disappeared into the world, living quietly, anonymously, and painfully alone. She had money in the bank, but refused to touch it. It felt tainted, like a symbol of betrayal. She simply wandered, trying to figure out how to breathe again. And in all the people she met during that long, cold, wandering year, no one ever once looked at her as a human being until Daniel and Lily. One morning, after nearly 6 weeks of quiet mornings together, Claire showed up in a crisp navy coat and clean boots instead of her torn clothing. Her hair was brushed, her eyes were clear, and she held a letter in her shaking hand. "Daniel," she whispered, I need to tell you something." But before she could say another word, a black SUV pulled up, and 4 tall men in suits stepped out, men who looked like federal agents but moved like bodyguards. Behind them stepped 2 women in dark green legal coats, carrying thick document folders. The entire street froze. People stared. Cars slowed. Lily gripped Daniel's hand and whispered, "Daddy, what's happening?" Daniel stood still, shielding his daughter, confused and tense. The lead attorney, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, approached Daniel. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "please don't be alarmed. We're here because of Miss Ellison." Daniel blinked. "Miss who?" Claire lifted her eyes, and for the first time, Daniel saw a strength in her that she had been hiding all along. "Claire Ellison," the attorney clarified, "heiress to the Ellison Trust. We have been searching for her for nearly a year. She has instructed us not to disclose her location to anyone until she felt safe." Daniel felt the world tilt under his feet. The quiet, soft-spoken woman he had been, bringing tea to every morning, was a woman who controlled more wealth than he could ever imagine. But Claire stepped forward, ignoring the lawyers, ignoring the bodyguards, ignoring the curious crowd, and looked directly at Daniel with an expression full of tears and gratitude. "They can wait," she whispered. "Daniel, Lily, you two saved me." Her voice cracked. "You didn't know who I was. You didn't want anything from me. You just treated me like a human being when I felt like nothing." And then she placed the letter into Daniel's hand. His chest tightened as he opened it. It wasn't a goodbye letter. It wasn't a thank you card. It was an official directive signed by Claire that she wanted Daniel Brooks appointed as an advisor to the Ellison Humanitarian Program, with a paid salary far beyond anything he had dreamed of. But the part that made his breath stop was the last line. "Because he is the only person I trust with my life and with the future of this foundation. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. Claire, I'm just a guy trying to raise my daughter. Claire smiled through her tears. And that's exactly why I chose you. You see, people, you helped me when I was invisible. You gave me dignity when I had none. One of the lawyers approached carefully. Miss Ellison, the board is waiting. But Claire turned to Lily, knelt down and held her tiny hands. Sweetheart, you don't know this, but your drawings kept me alive. You reminded me that there is still kindness in the world. Lily hugged her tightly. Daniel watched, overwhelmed. 1,000 emotions crashing together inside him. Confusion, gratitude, disbelief, and a deep feeling of connection he didn't know he needed. When Claire finally stood up, she spoke softly, but with the confidence of a woman reclaiming her life. Daniel, I don't know what the future holds, but I want you two to be a part of it. Not because of charity, not because of pity, but because you became my family before you even knew my name. Daniel swallowed hard, unable to speak for a moment. Then he gently rested a hand on her shoulder. Whatever you need, Claire. We're here. The lawyers stepped aside. The bodyguards lowered their stance, and Claire walked with Daniel and Lily down the sidewalk. Not as an heiress surrounded by security, but as a woman walking beside the only people who ever made her feel seen. And for the first time in years, Claire wasn't running from her past. She was walking toward her future. And that future began with the simple kindness of a single dot on a cold November morning.